after being notified of IBM ending diversity quotas by the Lunduke Journal, which broke the story earlier this week, as many of you will remember. Robby Starbuck, who has a fantastic name, claimed credit for the work of dozens and dozens of Red Hat and IBM employees, past and present, lawyers, an attorney general from a state of the United States, and even the Lunduke Journal itself. Now, Robby Starbuck is an anti-DEI influencer and one-time congressional candidate. He has a very, very large audience. So when he comes out and he takes full credit for the work of everyone who's been covering and pushing and negotiating and working with and suing IBM and Red Hat over the last year and a half, stuff that I know very, very well inside out that he had no involvement in, I have to speak out on this because it's absolutely insane. Now, I want to say this to preface everything. Truth is important. I don't make exceptions for people who agree with me on various matters or are on my team, right? Doesn't matter. This isn't a tribal thing. It's about truth, honesty, factual reporting. I don't care if you're on the left or on the right. I don't care if you agree with my ideas on tech or you don't agree with my ideas on tech or agree with my ideas on wokeness or not. Doesn't matter. Truth is truth. Facts are facts. If you lie, if you take credit for the work of others, if you do something shady that impacts the technology industry, the world of computing, or the reporting of it, I'm calling you out. There are no exceptions to this, none whatsoever. And so with that, let's dive in. To start with, the background here. On April 8th, 3 days ago, the Lunduke Journal reported that both Red Hat and their parent company IBM were ending a large portion of their DEI-related activities. Not absolutely everything. There are still some, but the most of them, right? Including some of the really critical ones that they're getting sued about. We're talking about the diversity requirements for suppliers, the diversity quotas and goals related to hiring and firing people, stuff the Lunduke Journal has been reporting on for, well, really since 2023, right? When the first big round of leaks from whistleblowers with inside IBM and Red Hat came through the Lunduke Journal. So I reported that on April 8th. On April 10th, Robby Starbuck declared massive news. IBM is ending their DEI policies. I notified IBM recently that I would be exposing their woke policies. In response, they engaged with me and agreed to massive changes. I can now exclusively tell you what's changing. And if you're reading that, you might say, wait a minute, something doesn't sound right here. So you, Robby Starbuck, recently notified IBM of something when there's been lawsuits, negotiations, and extensive coverage and leaks going on for the last 2 years. So where are you just now getting involved? Also, he threatened to expose their woke policies. That's been done. That's been done, son. That's been done by the Lunduke Journal as well as James O'Keefe. Again, for the last 2 years, there's no threat there. He also claims to be exclusively announcing that IBM is getting rid of some DEI stuff, which is not exclusive. So it's a big ball of say what now? Now it's important to note at this point that Robby Starbuck, he saw all of my reporting. He follows me on X, as you can see there, and has a very large audience, close to 1 million. He has 800,000 followers on X. He's a visiting fellow to the Heritage Foundation, which the Heritage Foundation should think about that one real carefully. And quite honestly, he makes a lot of noise, right? He's talked about a lot of things. He's worked on anti-DEI coverage of let's see what Boeing, Ford, Lowe's, John Deere, etc. And he was at one time in 2022 a congressional candidate. He didn't win, but he was a congressional candidate. It should also be noted that I reached out to Robby Starbuck about this story before he ever covered any of it. I sent a little message to him. Hey, you see what's happening at IBM and Red Hat, getting a steady stream of leaks from them this week. Feel free to reach out if you need any info on the tech side of things, and keep up the great work. That's what I told Robby Starbuck earlier this week, before he had ever even mentioned IBM. Never mentioned him. He's never covered IBM before. He's never published any leaks. He's never done any articles or any shows, to my knowledge. I looked. He certainly hasn't been tweeting about it, right? So I reached out to Robby Starbuck, and I did this very, very honestly, because Robby Starbuck, again, if you look at what he does, he focuses on anti-DEI stuff on non-technology companies like Black & Decker, Toyota, Boeing, etc. That he covers those sorts of things, right? When they have DEI stuff, he covers it. Great. Well, since he doesn't touch on technology at all, but I've got these IBM and Red Hat stories, along with stories from some other companies coming up, that I have a huge pile of leaks from whistleblowers on. I've published 5%. Maybe of the total leaks that I've received over the last few weeks alone. And so I thought, well, this might be a great opportunity to help spread the word about what's happening in the technology industry. This is a good chance for people who don't cover technology, since IBM and IBM especially, big name, right? This is a great chance to get these words out into the more mainstream press, some of the more political press and whatnot. So I reached out to Robby, and my thinking was, hey, maybe I could provide this guy some verified leaked material from within IBM and Red Hat that I'm not going to be publishing. This would give him an exclusive so he could talk about this story. And at the same time, it ends up promoting the Lunduke Journal. It ends up giving him an exclusive. So win-win businessy wise, right? But even more than that, it helps to spread the story about what these people within IBM and Red Hat are accomplishing. A lot of the employees and the lawyers and whatnot pushing the DEI stuff out of those companies. It helps get more eyeballs on it, which in turn will help more tech companies to be like, hey, yeah, maybe I can stop these DEI policies, right? Win-win across the board. So I reached out to him. I made sure he knew. And come to find out, a whole lot of people reached out to Robby Starbuck with exactly this. Like, hey, did you see what the Lunduke Journal reported? Do you see all these exclusives from the Lunduke Journal? All the whistleblower stuff from the Lunduke Journal. This is crazy big news. So he knew about it. He even responded. He even responded to my coverage of it on X before deleting his response. Like he made a quick response talking about how great it was or something, and then deleted it real quick. Which means he saw it, knew it all, read it, watched it, whatever, and then thought, I should delete it so no one knows that I saw it. Now, he published a video. The video was only about 3 minutes long, was incredibly light on specifics, wildly light on specifics. Not only did he take credit for everyone else's work, he provided no new information that I can find at all. But boy, did he take credit. This is from the video. Quote, this is from Robby Starbuck. He's saying that IBM's dropping DEI. Quote, this is after we, Robby Starbuck, have come to the table and engaged with them. We are coming away with a lot of changes that we can exclusively tell you about. He's repeatedly going over and over again claiming he did all this. Basically, the story is he started emailing IBM very, very, very recently, last few weeks, and long after IBM made all the decisions that they made. And he's like, oh, we did it. We did everything. It's a very bizarre idea, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense at all. But then he turned it around, and because he's claiming all of this, claiming this massive victory because he's so powerful, he's encouraging people to pay him, to give him money. So he's fundraising off of stolen valor, basically, of not just the Lunduke Journal, but again, IBM employees, Red Hat employees, past employees, lawyers involved, an attorney general, and on and on and on. It's crazy. It's crazy. And now, according to Robby Starbuck, at the end of that post, he says this, and boy, does it raise red flags for me at this point. Quote, So far, you've helped me, Robby Starbuck, change corporate policy at Tractor Supply, John Deere, Harley Davidson, Polaris, Indian Motorcycle, Lowe's, Ford, Coors, Stanley Black & Decker, Jack Daniels, DeWalt Tools, Craftsman, Caterpillar, Boeing, Toyota, Walmart, McDonald, blah, 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 on and on and on. And then he ends at the very end with, and now IBM, right? We are forced to be reckoned with, right? So he's taking credit for doing all the stuff in IBM that huge numbers of people did, right? Lunduke Journal didn't do it. The Lunduke, if one person, either me or Robby Starbuck did it, I did it. Because I've been covering it nonstop. Massive leaks, huge amount of stuff. I hear that my name gets brought up repeatedly in these meetings, but I didn't do it. If you rank the influence that people had on making this change, I am way down there on that list. We've got President Trump and his executive orders. We've got the Attorney General of Missouri. We've got multiple past and present employees, including multiple ones which are suing both IBM and Red Hat over this. So they've got lawsuits going on. We've got the law firms that are engaging with them. We've got some of the companies that IBM and Red Hat contract to and work with that are giving them pushback. All of those people and all of those groups had more to do with this than the Lunduke Journal did. And Robby Starbuck is not involved in this. Not at all. He's taking credit for what everyone did. It's wild, which calls into question. I'm looking at the list of things he says he changed. Well, now, did he do the same thing at all these other companies? Did he just swoop in, send an email or two, claim he did a bunch, and then say, because he's Robby Starbuck, all these companies cowered in fear at Robby Starbuck and decide to change all of their legal policies and hiring and firing policies because Robby Starbuck sent him an email? I'm calling into question all of it, because I know for a fact he didn't have anything to do with the IBM stuff. So did he not have anything to do with the other stuff either? And just to make sure everyone's kind of fully aware here, this stuff, the work around this goes back really beginning in earnest in late 2023. And there's a lot of people involved. James O'Keefe published one of the first leaks, actually the first leak from IBM. It was a video of IBM's CEO talking about bonuses for hiring and firing based on race, which is an illegal thing. That kicked off a crazy, crazy storm of leaks and whistleblowers. Now, almost all of the leaks and whistleblowing and the news that followed came through the Lunduke Journal, almost all of it. But that really is because of the nature of what I do. I cover the tech industry, and a lot of the activity that was happening around IBM and diversity was happening in their subsidiary, Red Hat, which is primarily focused on open source and Linux. Therefore, it kind of falls in my purview, so I know a lot of people. And so I began publishing nonstop leaks, one after another, over the course of 2023 and into 2024. And then we're talking into 2024, we have several lawsuits kicking off. I mean, this is just a partial timeline here. But then into 2025, the Lunduke Journal once again published more leaks. At this point, it's hundreds of pages of stuff that I've published. It's crazy amounts of stuff, plus video. It's huge amounts of material. And this all came from people who put themselves on the line. They took significant risk to leak this material to the Lunduke Journal, right? The Lunduke Journal didn't risk much here. I published things. I was a mouthpiece. I curated some things. Sure, I spent time to do due diligence and investigation and research and verification of these things. But I didn't put my job on the line at Red Hat, at IBM, to get this information to the public. Literally dozens at this point of whistleblowers have done that. They put far more on the line than I think than anybody, right? They risked it all. They really stood up. But then of course, there's the fired employees that were suing. I mean, there's so much. And then I started looking into this some more. Bloomberg ran a story, a very short, very light on specific story that covered IBM canceling the DEI activities. Now, interestingly, I don't think the reporters at Bloomberg actually looked into this story much, because if they would have done a basic search on Google, a basic search on X, they would have seen all the leaks, all the lawsuits, all the coverage from the Lunduke Journal. It's all first page type stuff. They didn't include any of that. That's fine. I'm used to not getting quoted, no big deal. But they did have a quote in there from Robby Starbuck. Not a quote, but a reference. And I'm going to read this here to you now. Quote, anti-DEI activist Robby Starbuck said he first contacted the company, IBM, in February to question its policies. IBM confirmed it discussed its changes with Starbuck. Starbuck posted about it on social media on Thursday. Okay, all of that seems like it's probably all entirely accurate. But what that calls out is that Robby Starbuck actually didn't email IBM until after IBM made all the decisions, or at least most of the decisions relating to ending some of their DEI practices. I'm going to walk you guys through a little timeline here because this is critically important. And it also... It's important to get the facts out there. It's important to know who to trust about this sort of reporting. December of 2023, the Lunduke Journal and James O'Keefe publish leaks, right? Kudos to James O'Keefe. He kicked it all off with a singular video from IBM. The Lunduke Journal followed it up with videos from the Red Hat CEO, internal slide deck presentations in full, dozens of pages of emails, internal Slack chats, internal websites, internal documents, pictures of flyers on walls and bathroom doors, everything. And we were publishing nonstop leaks, really starting in December of 2023. And I continued publishing those throughout all of the year that followed 2024 and into 2025, which leads us to today. And during that time, I continued to publish updates about all of the lawsuits as they happen. Many of you will recognize those. Dozens of stories relating to the lawsuits and other stories about all of this happening inside both IBM and their subsidiaries like Red Hat. Now, throughout all of last year, 2024, there were two lawsuits from former employees and another lawsuit from the Missouri Attorney General. In addition to that, and that was huge. In addition to that, though, several parties were involved in IBM discussions to change or end in measurable ways IBM policies, right? That was happening throughout all of 2024. I can verify that with many parties, right? This was ongoing. In November of 2024, things changed dramatically because President Trump got elected. Now, the reason it changed dramatically, I think, is obvious. Everyone knew at that time that President Trump was going to go all in on his battle on DEI politics stuff in corporate America. That was a known. That was a given issue. In January of 2024, immediately after being sworn in, President Trump issued executive orders. Those executive orders made it really difficult for companies in the United States to have significant DEI policies and still manage to work with military contractors or directly with any government agency. This is IBM. This is Red Hat. They do a metric ton of work with the United States government. Huge amounts of money. And even more than that, they do a lot of work with tons and tons of contractors, other companies that do work with the United States government. This put all of that into jeopardy, right? Throughout all of this period of time, the internal pressure was increasing rapidly and drastically. Between November of 2024 and January of 2025, IBM in multiple departments and Red Hat in multiple departments reached decisions that it was necessary to roll back their diversity quotas and potentially many of their other DEI programs for all the reasons we just laid out, right? Everything I just talked about was a factor. All the different coverage, all the different leaks, all of the lawsuits, all of the pressure from internal people and external people, from businesses that they worked with and employees, all of it factored into this, as well as those executive orders from President Trump. That really was the catalyst that tipped this over the scale, right? Undoubtedly. I verified this internally at both Red Hat and IBM that absolutely was the critical factor. Now, here's where Robby Starbuck comes in. February of 2025, After all of this has happened, after countless people, well, it's countable, but it's a lot. After so many people have been working tirelessly, putting their jobs on the line for years to effect these sorts of changes, after President Trump and the Attorney General of Missouri and law firms and everyone had managed all this, and after both Red Hat and IBM had already decided to roll back their diversity quotas, Robby Starbuck, who had not covered IBM or Red Hat in any way, shape, or form, not at all, decides to email IBM. Right? He decides to email IBM at this point in February. Nothing happens, right? But it sounds like, and I'm going to go ahead and believe everyone here. It sounds like IBM responded to Robby Starbuck and said, yeah, we're changing some things. Robby Starbuck, this happened this week, by the way. Robby Starbuck took it as a win. I did it. I sent an email and IBM just quaked in their boots. Well, again, Robby Starbuck didn't have all this information at this point. April 8th, I broke the story of the IBM policy changes with all of the leaks from all of the whistleblowers who, again, risked their jobs to get that out into the public. Robby Starbuck sees that coverage, responds to that coverage, comments on that coverage, receives that coverage from myself and huge numbers of his readers and viewers. 2 days later, Robby Starbuck takes full credit for any changes at IBM and declares that, well, he did it. He just did it. Where's this at here? He then begins hiding people or comments on X of anyone that says, wait, what? Because I did this. I literally posted a post on X that said, what? I know kind of who did this. Like I know all the names of the people who were involved. And Robby Starbuck, you did not thank anyone that was really, really actively involved. I think he made a quick mention of James O'Keefe, like a 2-second mention of James O'Keefe, who published one video very, very early on and has not been involved since. That's not to diminish what James O'Keefe did, right? Like he played a pivotal role in all this. Like he deserves a high five for all of it. But there's a lot of people, again, lawyers and all sorts of people who have been really actively involved, both visibly, publicly, and behind the scenes. And he didn't thank anybody. He took full credit for all of it, right? And then he started hiding anyone who said, I've been watching the Lunduke Journal coverage of this for years, and I've never heard you mention this before, Mr. Robby Starbuck. So what's going on? In fact, and here was kind of a fun thing that someone pointed out to me. If you hop onto X, right, over on X, and you do a search for IBM DEI on X, what you get is like 2 or 3 results that change depending on the moment you do the search on, and almost everything below that. Sometimes those are me, sometimes those are someone else, but everything below that is just Lunduke. Like it's Lunduke all the way down. It's like Turtles all the way down, except it's Lunduke all the way down. When you look through it, it's nothing but nonstop Lunduke. And you might say, well, maybe Lunduke reports on IBM and diversity issues too much. But the reality is I'm the one that reports on all this, right? I'm the one who's blown the whistle on all these things. Or I'm the one who reports on all the whistleblower leaks and all that sort of thing. And you look through it, and there's no post from Robby Starbuck. There's nothing. Not even a mention, not even a comment until yesterday. Until he took credit for doing everything. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And then he was hiding so many comments. People were like, here's a link to Lunduke yesterday. Here's a link to Lunduke last week. Here's a link to Lunduke a year and a half ago, where he broke all this news. You didn't exclusive anything. You didn't do any of this. Like, it's obvious to everybody. And people started asking Grok, who has been covering IBM longer, Robby Starbuck or the Lunduke Journal? And, because you can do this thing now on X where you can inline in a comment, say, at Grok, and then ask a question, and then Grok will respond with a comment in line with the answer. So I decided to ask it myself over on X and take a screenshot of it. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm typically not a fan of artificial intelligence. I don't really like chatbots. Many of you have heard me complain about the AI stuff and chatbots repeatedly. This right here won a lot of brownie points. I'm start if one screenshot could make me all of a sudden really like AI systems, it's this one. I'm just gonna read it to you now because it made me happy. So I asked Grok over on X, who has been covering IBM longer, Robby Starbuck or the Lunduke Journal? Here's Grok's response. The Lunduke Journal has been covering IBM for a longer period than Robby Starbuck. The Lunduke Journal began reporting on IBM and its subsidiary Red Hat's diversity, equity, and inclusion policies as early as December 2023, correct, with detailed leaks and investigative pieces continuing into 2024 and 2025. This includes exclusive leaks of internal documents and presentations, lawsuits, and policy changes with significant coverage documented over multiple years. In contrast, Robby Starbuck's coverage of IBM appears to have started later. An understatement. While he has been active in I almost feel like that's snarky. While he has been active in targeting DEI programs across various companies since at least mid-2024, this is a new thing for him, his specific focus on IBM's DEI policies gained attention in 2025, notably after the Lunduke Journal had already broken stories about IBM dropping its DEI initiative. There you go. So that's great. Thus, based on the timeline of their respective efforts, the Lunduke Journal has a longer history of covering IBM. I want to take a moment and I want to thank some people. I want to praise some people here for doing some really good work. And this is important to do because there's a lot of people that are involved, and I've published a lot of videos, a lot of articles, a lot of social media posts and the like, detailing all of the leaks and all of the lawsuits. But a lot of people just don't often enough get the praise. And I wanted to take a moment to do that. So I want to thank America First Legal. They've been involved with 2 of the lawsuits, and it looks like they've done a pretty good job with them. So I want to thank them and praise them for being involved with that. I want to thank the Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey. While he lost his lawsuit against IBM, it brought a lot of attention to the DEI issues within IBM, while the judge tossed it out. And I think that was ridiculous. It was a Democrat appointed judge and they tossed the lawsuit out. It was insane. It's still, that lawsuit from the Missouri Attorney General still had a dramatic impact on everything that happened at both IBM and all the subsidiary companies, which are legion. I want to thank and give a little praise to both Randall Dill and Alan Wood. They're unsung heroes in a lot of this. Both of those men are a former IBM employee and a former Red Hat employee. They are involved in lawsuits against the companies that are still ongoing, and in my opinion have a very good chance of success, just simply based on the judges involved and all of the massive amount of documentation they have. So I want to give them a high five. I want to high five James O'Keefe, because James O'Keefe helped get a lot of this information out there into the public, especially with that first video leak from the IBM CEO. That really kicked a lot off. And so fantastic high five to James O'Keefe and the individual who leaked him that information. So high five to you as well. And really importantly, I want to thank, and I'm not going to name names here. You know who you are. Maybe I'll name names when you aren't working at IBM anymore. But I want to thank the IBM and praise the IBM and Red Hat employees who have been pushing change internally, because there are many employees that still work there and have worked there over the last year and a half plus that have really, in an environment where it is all too easy to lose your job, to be banned from projects, to be banned from organizations, to be blackballed in the industry by speaking out against DEI, so many of them have been. And they've really been pushing forward. And that includes some management at both companies, at both IBM and Red Hat. So kudos. That takes a tremendous amount of bravery, and they did the right thing. And I think that's fantastic. I also want to thank the whistleblowers. The whistleblowers, so many whistleblowers have provided so much leaked material to the Lunduke Journal over the last year and a half. It is absolutely massive. I mean, this week alone, we've been publishing internal emails from both IBM and Red Hat executives. We've been publishing comments. We've been publishing, Slack channel conversations, screenshots. We've been publishing all sorts of stuff from internally within the company. And that's just this week. Right? We've published so much over the years, and not one drop of that would have come to light. None of it would have come public if it weren't for all of those whistleblowers risking their jobs to make it happen. And I want to tell you flat out, I will always protect your identities. No company will ever find out about this. No other human being will ever know your identities other than me. Not nobody. Absolutely nobody, not even my wife, knows the identities of the whistleblowers that have contacted the Lunduke Journal. And that's something I take absolutely critically. It's a solemn vow and promise. It's a relationship I make with anyone who trusts me enough to get this whistleblower information published. They trust me to keep their identity secret and to work to make sure that no identifiable information of theirs will make it out into the public without their consent. And so thank you. None of this would be possible without you. And I also want to thank some of the partner companies of IBM and Red Hat. There's several contractors and firms that they contract to have been putting a lot of force on IBM and Red Hat and several other subsidiaries to change those policies throughout all of 2024. You made this possible. I mean, really, this hit IBM and Red Hat in the bottom line, right in the pocketbook, so many times, and it couldn't have been done without you. And while there is a very long way to go in fighting against some of the racist and sexist discriminatory DEI stuff in big tech, some of those like the race quotas and whatnot. And there's still a tremendous amount of conflict happening inside of Red Hat and IBM. In fact, this is not all said and done. While significant change is occurring and it is verifiable that it is happening, including measurable, actual concrete policy change, there still remains a huge amount of conflict. I've been reporting on some of it this week. Internal threats, HR department issues, all sorts of stuff. And there's a large contingency of employees inside both IBM and Red Hat that are not happy about losing some of these DEI policies. They want them back. They're continuing to fight for them. And it remains to be seen how that's all going to shake out. So we're going to keep close tabs on all of this. While Mr. Robby Starbuck may want to claim credit for the work of all of the people I just mentioned, and he might want to say, in order to, I guess, raise funds or something, that it's all done, moving on. There's still a lot more to do. And I just want to make sure I put all that out there because, again, these facts are important, regardless of what side you're on in any battle. And I'm going to come right back to this at the very end, because truth is important. Robby Starbuck fights against DEI in large corporations. I approve of that. I do. You would think that we could be allies, right, in that fight. You would think that my coverage would be useful and interesting to him in that fight. He has no interest in it. In fact, he knows about it, but claims not to. He follows it, but then doesn't want anyone to see it, that he follows it. He takes full credit for the accomplishments of not just myself, but lawyers and employees and attorney generals and outside contractors and everything. He takes credit for all of it. And that damages so much. It damages trust. Because now when people see him out there promoting how there's a DEI program in a company, well, is there? Are you telling the truth this time? When he's out there saying, "Oh, I just managed to convince this company to stop being, DEI politicking," did you? Because you didn't with IBM, but you claimed to. Now, I've had a long conversation with Robby Starbuck. As I reached out to him, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I believe that everyone makes mistakes and everyone deserves second chances. And I believe everyone deserves third and fourth chances, and on and on and on. Maybe I'm too much that way. Maybe I'm not, whatever. But I racked my brain. Is there a scenario where Robby Starbuck is not lying here? He's telling the God's honest truth that as far as he knows, he just simply is wrong. Like maybe, and I was racking my brain. Maybe there's some scenario where he's had no involvement with anything happening at IBM or at Red Hat. And he hasn't been following the news around it at all, right? Not anything. Right, because I mean, you can't even do Google searches around IBM DEI stuff and not read several of my articles. It's just not possible, right? You can't research it. So I thought, well, maybe he just hasn't been involved until now. He claims to have first emailed them in February. Great, maybe he did that. Maybe he just wasn't involved, and he just tossed an email out to him in February. And maybe that email where he's like, "Hey, I heard you guys are woke, IBM. If you don't, I'm going to tell people you're woke if you don't stop being woke." Maybe he said that. And maybe IBM responded because they had already decided to change all the policies based on everything I've shown you. Maybe IBM responded to Robby Starbuck because he has a big audience and he once ran for Congress. And they responded to him and said, "Yeah, we're changing policies. Thanks for reaching out to us. We really appreciate it. We'll take everything you're saying under consideration, Robby Starbuck. Thanks so much. Oh, it's so valuable. I'm so glad we're changing everything." Wink, wink. Right. If I was marketing at IBM, that's how I would handle it. Right. And maybe Robby Starbuck saw that and said, "I did it. I won because I'm powerful." Okay, maybe he felt that way. So I presented that in a much kinder way to Robby in a private message. I'm like, is this more in line with what happened, right? Maybe there's this scenario where you were telling the truth, you just were out of the loop. And if that's the case, you know what? Maybe you could just give some credit to all these people that did so much for this. Now, I mean, giving some credit to me would be great, but all these other people that did all of this work. And he fought back against that. He did not want to give credit to anybody. He was adamantly opposed to that. I repeated that over and over again. And then eventually I realized that it did not seem to me like he was coming at it from a place of good intentions. It's what it seemed to me from reading through the chats. And he has all the chats and I have all the chats, and I'm sure both of us have it all screenshotted. So if he wants to release them, I'll release them too. But I don't like to release private chats unless other people agree to it. But my paraphrasing is that I offered him this chance. I'm like, well, okay, I get it. You did lie a little bit. You said you had an exclusive. It wasn't an exclusive. You said you did it on your own. You didn't do it on your own. Maybe now's just a good chance to say, "Oh, sorry. Oh, geez, I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. But you know what? We all worked on this together in our own ways. I emailed them and you guys did all the other stuff. And here's all the things you did." And, make some sort of statement, save some face. And I told him that maybe we can make a statement together. I'm willing to do that. That was me bending over backwards, right? Because I don't want to harm some guy's profession and job or public perception. But the reality is he has showed no interest. He showed no interest at all in apologizing, in giving anyone else credit, the Lunduke Journal or the Attorney General or the employees or anyone. So what was I left with? So I come out and I publish this publicly because you have a need to present the facts. You've got to get the facts out there. People need to know that they can trust the facts that are out there. And honestly, people need to know that they can trust that the Lunduke Journal is going to report the facts honestly, no matter who the subject matter is. In this case, we've got a person, Robby Starbuck, who is conservative. I think he's a Republican. I think he ran as a Republican for Congress. He's anti-DEI. He fights against DEI and big corporations. You would think we'd be partners. You would think we would at least work together occasionally. But he said things that were not true. He was, in my opinion, disgraceful. What he did was dishonest. What he presented to people did not help any anti-DEI cause. In fact, I would go so far as to say he hurt things significantly here. But I'm going to go ahead and publish all this information publicly because, you know, it's all verifiable. People can look over my history with IBM and DEI. Again, it's great. Go do a search on X for IBM and DEI. It's great. It's basically Lunduke all the way down. It's fantastic. And no Robby Starbuck. And so people can do their own research on all this and make up their own minds. But I wanted to make sure I set the record straight. I also want to thank the Lunduke Journal subscribers for putting the faith in me, for allowing me to do what I do. I couldn't do it without you. Go to lunduke.com, click on links to watch wherever you want to watch. It's all over the place. I'm everywhere. You can YouTube, X, the audio podcast is always the most popular, but you can grab my stuff wherever you want. You can even download MP4 files and watch them that way. It's great. But thank you. Thank you for putting the trust in me to do this coverage and to bring this information to you accurately, objectively, and honestly, every single week. Couldn't do it without you. All right, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes, across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.